Hello everyone, I'm Bill. This is a campaign update. We played Call of Cthulhu last Sunday. We played one of the adventures out of Doors to Darkness. This is a great book if you've never played Call of Cthulhu before or ran Call of Cthulhu adventures. These are easy enough to run, and each adventure is designed to be completed within a one night's worth of game sessions. And the adventure that they played was None More Black. If you're one of my players and you didn't play in this adventure, if I'm going to run this for you in the future, it'd be better if you don't watch this video. If you're interested in playing in Call of Cthulhu, I recommend this book to whoever is going to run it, and don't let them watch this video, but you don't watch this video, so that way you're not spoiled on what all's going on and what all's happening, because when I go over this is going to reveal a few of the keynotes going on, and if you knew that going into it, you would, whether you chose to or not, you would be moving more towards that than letting the investigation go the way it should, everything being all fun and new to you. So without further ado, the party picked some, there are pre-generated characters in the back. They picked between those and played some of those characters. This takes place on Miskatonic University's campus, but if you wanted to change it to any other university's campus, you could. And this takes place in the 1920s. It starts with the death of Walter Resnick, who's one of the students at the school. His death turns out to be the third death within the last week at the school, and all the deaths have similar findings. There are little, like, Coca-Cola bottles with some sort of black residue in the bottom of it, and all their tongues are stained black. So the party, one of them's playing a physician. The coroner was busy dealing with something at the time, so he did the autopsy himself, and he found something weird with the black substance. And then when he was looking at the dead cells and blood under a microscope, one of them moved at him, and it was just that split second. He then goes. Resnick was also learning boxing from the boxer that's in the party, so he gets involved in the investigation as well. And they start asking questions around campus, and then somebody's playing a physics teacher, and they get involved as well because Resnick was in her class. So they first note the odd behavior of Walter Resnick before his demise. He was erratic. He started, like 2 weeks before this happened, he started showing up late if he showed up at all, and he was acted very unusual for how he had been up until that time. They end up talking to a few of the students, and they find out that Paul Rogers has been coming into the school. He was caught cheating last year and expelled, but they say that he's seen around campus every once in a while hanging out with some people. They eventually find out that he's the one delivering the black to the campus. This is what surprised me. They take him off campus to a place and give him a good once over. And they threaten him a whole lot, and he refuses to give up his source. And so they end up releasing him after stating his tongue black, hoping to get his source upset at him and then they pay somebody from the school to follow him. The person that they pay doesn't show up to school the next day. And then a few hours later, during the day, a few hours after school starts, the physicians called to the residence that Paul Rogers had, and they find on the steps hold on. A day went by. The guy they paid to tail didn't show up that evening. As they're going around trying to figure out what's going on, they find a passerby that's covered in blood. There's police there investigating, and they find Paul Rogers on the ground. Looks like he had fallen over 200 feet, and the surrounding buildings were not that tall. Then they find out where his house is. They find the student that they paid to tail him dead on the steps. An autopsy's done on that kid, and the kid was force-fed enough of either alcohol or the black to cause him to just completely die of alcohol poisoning. So now the party has that weighing on them. And then as they explore Paul Rogers' house, they find a note that has some scritches of some math on it, and it looks like it used to be a card to an old slaughterhouse, the old meat plant. They try to figure out where it's at. It takes them a good bit to figure it out because that plant's been closed for 30 years. So once they figure it out, they decide to head that way. They come upon the slaughterhouse. They sneak around and they look inside, and they see some cultists there chanting. And they watch the cultists long enough that they see this oozing, bubbling blood just kind of appear out of the air, and blood begins just dripping, and they're catching it in this container. And then they put that away, and then a different cultist begins chanting, and the thing returns, and it does it again. So the party approaches this the same way they would any other adventure I would run for them. They want to set the place on fire. They find a few things to do that. I believe it was a couple of kerosene lamps or something like that. They light them and they toss them in, which starts a big old ruckus. The bodyguard to the man in charge Willis Carter. He comes out with a revolver and he opens fire on the party. He gets out to the outside, and the party has taken him out with return fire by that point. Meanwhile, the boss of what's going on, Jacob Dover, he orders his men, or his creatures, to go and handle the situation. So they grab the nearest guy that's at the door outside and pull him up into the rafters, which is only two stories high, and drop him. He takes like 2 dice damage. The party fires upon these things, these faceless bat-winged things with long tails. And I don't believe they took any of them out. And I believe Jacob Dover opened fire upon the party. The party ends up jumping into a vehicle, their vehicle, and driving off with 2 injured, like severely injured, and 1 just barely injured. This is the first time I've seen this party in that state with these players, so it was very interesting. They return back in about a week, or the healthy one returns during the day, and they find that the place has been burnt around that area, but any evidence of the black being made or stored here is now missing, as Jacob Dover has decided the fight here was a little bit too intense. He doesn't want the police here, so he's going to move on and find another place to start his production. So the party got rewarded for this adventure by stopping the black trade in the area. I don't know if I rewarded them for dealing with Jacob Dover, but the Night Gaunts, the faceless bat things, they didn't defeat, so. And they didn't get to encounter the optional monstrosity that would have definitely caused some of them to go insane at the current rate the game was going. So they had another option that they didn't get to. If they could have figured out where Jacob Dover was staying, they could have went and followed, well, if they would have followed the drug dealer around from the school and not have assaulted him and just observed him for a couple of days, eventually one of the evenings on the 3rd day of him being observed, he would have went to meet with Jacob Dover to resupply his supply of black so he could keep selling. That's when they would have figured out where this place was easier, and then Jacob Dover, if they would have followed him around, they would have found his house and a few more information pieces there to help them link the investigation together a little bit better. But other than that, they still managed to make it to the final area, and they still managed to have a good have at it with the enemy. But other than killing a few of the drug addicted cultists, the main guy still got away. If you've ran this adventure or played in this adventure, put it in the comments below how yours went. I'm very curious. I'm sure I could run this adventure 100 times and have hardly any of them play out exactly the same. So, well, until we all game again, guys.